Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Friday Night from the Forum. I got a crew in the house tonight, and we are here with all the goods, all the combine talk, all the draft talk, all the catastrophe of drops, cuts, trades for late round, 7th round picks for seasons way beyond the next two. Here we are. It is tampering season. It is, the Dynasty offseason, what we all love. If you play Dynasty Fantasy, obviously this is what you live for. Drafts, combine, all that good jazz. But anyways, we are here. I got Joe, and I got two incredible guests with us this week. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, tell you where they create content, and then we're going to get rolling. So start us off, Steph.
Yeah, hi, I'm Steph Miller. I create content over at Legendary Upside. I help with some Dynasty stuff over there. I do their waiver article in season, and then I run some high stakes teams for the guys of ship chasing. And yeah.
And of course, we got the renowned AI bot himself. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, hopefully my firmware doesn't fry up in the middle of this. I'm Ronnie Evans. I work over at Trophy Smack. I'm their AI specialist and do a little bit of community management for them. Help on the back end over at Gridiron Ratings, and then like my home. Not actually content-wise. I hop on shows for them, but my home has really been the sports affiliate for the last 2 years. I just love their whole crew. They're good people. But that's me. Trophy Smack, Gridiron Ratings, sports affiliation. But my employer is Trophy Smack, so if you pick one, it's that one for sure.
Well, Ronnie, you've been on a couple times, and you're getting a little show love here. Southern Dad's Game, he said, "Yo, Ronnie, where's that Sky Moore jersey at?"
Look, we
went
from
the seats, bro.
We went through the Sky Moore love and crash, and me and a bunch of big people in the industry. I wasn't alone. And then I went in on Puka, and like immediately the next year, like in February, I was talking about Puka. So Sky Moore is just a distant memory to me. Like Puka was such a nuclear smash in the opposite direction that Sky was a dud that, forget Sky, whatever.
We got Brent in the chat. Let's go. Love the show. Southern Dad's Gaming giving us a little what's up. Rusty Shackelford. Hey, let's effing go. Got a crew night. If you guys have questions, drop them in. Steph, it's wonderful to have you. Obviously, this is our first time interacting, and I'm excited for it. But, we just got through the NFL Combine. And as you know, you see it every year with fantasy, right? Like here comes the Combine, and then we have the skyrocket takes. We have the falls. We have this is the new home run pick of the season. What was your take on the Combine? Was there anybody that stood out to you? Anybody that you were really excited about coming out of it?
I mean, I guess overall, I was super impressed with like the running back class, which wasn't a surprise. Like going in, that's been kind of, the talk of, this draft is that it was a really, deep class and stuff. So a lot of those guys, like I think we had 10 guys run like a 4.44 or faster in the Combine, which is like so ridiculous. Some of the guys in that running back group that stood out, Marion Hampton, Quinshon Judkins had some really good combine. Bishal Tutan also had a really strong combine. He had the fastest 40, and I believe it was the second longest broad jump and highest vertical. So he really helped his stock there. Yeah, that was like, and then some of the wide receivers, Matthew Golden was very impressive, outrunning his college teammate there, Isaiah Bond, who said he was going to outrun Worthy. So it was kind of funny there. I'm like, I don't know why you would say that. Like we're going to see. Like, if you can't back it up, you had to know you were not that fast.
Well, it's like, did you at least like race your teammate before you make bold claims about breaking the record? It's like you weren't even the fastest guy on your team. Like, what are we doing here?
Maybe he thought he had an end with like the timekeepers.
For sure.
Maybe he was talking 4-1 something, and I was like, man, I'm that confidence. I can't wait to see what you run. Like, even if it's like a 4-2 something, I'm gonna be excited. You know what I mean?
That's the confidence that I aspire to have in life. So yeah, I'm gonna run 4-1. It's fine.
Exactly.
You know, I think Stephanie, you know, like I think you know, Bishal Tutan out of Virginia Tech, I think that the combine, like, he's one of those, like, people weren't talking about as much till after the combine. You know, like, they're the players that the combine raises their stock so much. I think he was one of those. You know, obviously, when you make promises about your 40 time and you don't hit, that also probably affects your draft stock a little bit in the other direction. But love it. I mean, I'm with you. The running backs, you rarely see so many in the 4.4 range. I was impressed, you know, and I've been excited. We've been talking about it for the last couple weeks on the show. It really does kind of feel like it's the changing of the guard for the running back position in the NFL. So many players are like in their last year, or like they're phasing out, right? In Dynasty, I'm getting tons of offer, you know, like people trying to get, like, you know, guys that are just they're on the last ring, you know, they're trying to get offload them, you know, and we have so much running back talent. I mean, and I'm not saying they're all going to be effective this year, but we could definitely see, you know, a lot, you know, really grab a hold of significant roles within the next year to year and a half. So I'm with you. I'm really excited about that. So as far as like players that, or was there any one player that like you felt like in your dynasty leagues, based on combine, based in college, you know, obviously we had some quarterbacks. Will Howard tanked his draft stock with that combine performance. Is there anybody that you're like, you know, I really can't leave the draft without this person?
I mean, probably like, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it depends what pick we're talking. I mean, like, if you could get like Ashton Genty, I mean, of course. But I mean, like I said, any of those like top running backs, really, like I said, I think those top 3 feel really good. Top 4 maybe are guys I like. I'm not as impressed, you know, with the quarterbacks, which, you know, has been kind of a common thing. I think some of the tight ends, I mean, we didn't get to see the top guys really do anything, but they could be really fun, especially I play in a lot of tight end premium leagues. So I am pretty excited about, you know, having Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland available. I like a couple of the other guys. We didn't see Mason Taylor run, but he looked amazing in his gauntlet. Like, that was how it's done. Like, you know, I mean, he's the son of Hall of Famer, so it's not that big of a surprise that, you know, he was good. So those are some guys I'm, you know, excited about too. I still like, as a little deeper guy, I still like Rashard Smith out of SMU. I think he could be a really fun weapon for a team. He was a converted wide receiver, and he was still pretty fast. He wasn't as explosive, but like that wasn't, I don't think anyone expected that part of his game necessarily. But I think that he could be a really interesting sleeper a little bit in this draft as well.
What about you, Ronnie? Anybody stood out to you in the draft or in the combine?
Well, to go back to the original, like, is there anyone that I can't leave my rookie drafts without getting? Sorry, I got the hiccups a second ago. Is Xavier Restrepo? The comment earlier about Skymore. I have this weird exercise that I do every year, where I try to find people like in March. By the end of March, I got a guy at each of the 4 main positions for fantasy that are just like people aren't prioritizing in their drafts that I think they should. And it's 50-50, which I think is better than it should be because it's mostly second and third round rookie picks. But this year it's Restrepo for me. I'm pretty like this will be the first time I say it publicly, but before I put that little article out, Xavier Restrepo literally does everything well. And if you talk to anyone that went to the Senior Bowl, the murmurs that were coming out from the actual NFL scouts there when they were asked about like what wide receivers, who do you want? What would you do if you were here right now and you had to walk away with a player on your team? They all said Restrepo. They're just like, he's going to show up. He's the most pro-ready player in the class at the position, so on and so forth. And so he's not the best prospect in the class, but you don't have to be. Like Ladd McConkey last year, I felt was that at wide receiver in that class. Kind of an undersized, underheralded guy that was just ready to go from day one. And I think we got that with Restrepo, and we're going to see it next season.
Restrepo is interesting to me. There's several deep flyers in this class at wide receiver, especially that I'm pretty interested in. What about you, Joe? Anybody that really just tickled your fancy?
Yeah, it's funny because I've been helping out a lot of the guys that have been pushing content for Fantasy Football Advice Network. So shout out to Grindberg and Chev and those guys have been putting all these videos. I feel like as I've been editing them, I've been hearing a lot of the guys that they're interested, like playing in my head over and over again, like at night after I get done with the video. I think the guy for me, even though he didn't have an electric combine, the person that, especially from the back half of the first round, Caleb Johnson just screams amazing player to me. It's just knowing his breakaway run rate, seeing what he did at Iowa. I feel very excited about it. He didn't have, say, the dazzling combine, but if you look at the size, you look at what he's done just on tape, I'm just a really big fan of. I think what the most interesting component for the combine for me was just that I feel like, at least from the dynasty perspective, Henderson was really the OSU running back that everybody was like really excited about. And then Judkins had a great combine, and now it kind of becomes this toss-up once again between who you like better. So it's going to be really interesting to see like how that plays out come draft time. I think Henderson's probably the more valued running back out of the two, but I do think that Judkins is going to be a really strong player in the NFL. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
You know, Judkins' big thing is like, obviously people say he's got a nose for the end zone. You know, like it's like that David Montgomery thing, like just in the goal line, give him the ball, he can find the end zone. He did it in the college football playoff. Like, you know, that's what people are really excited about. But I do like the depth in this class, Ronnie, and I appreciate the Restrepo pick. You know, like there's a lot of players that are not on anybody's radar. And maybe it's because of where they played or what, like, for example, and I'm going to throw one out here. Tesla out of Arkansas, and you guys know I'm an Arkansas fan,
yeah.
so maybe
here we go.
But I did not expect him. I did not expect him to run a 4.43 40. I didn't expect that. But hands wise, if you watch his clips and you watch the catches, he's got some of the best hands. You know, and it's really, really solid, especially if you watch before he gets to Arkansas. And, you know, he came in the first year after transferring in, and he did not have a good quarterback, you know, and then last year he had a quarterback that mostly got it done on his feet. So you still didn't see, you know, and you see that Armstrong, same thing. Like you didn't really see what they're capable of. But if you look at the tape, just anybody watching, just go look at the tape.
I think
you don't have to take me. Don't look at the stats. Don't look at the yearly stats. Just go look at the tape.
I think it is interesting for sure, because if you think about the perception of the league and like this draft, it's not viewed as like a home run hitting blue chip class.
It's not.
But I do think that there's a lot of valuable depth pieces, and depending on landing spot, they might not have had as premier of an opportunity as they would see in other years. But you have a lot of teams that are rebuilding. I think what we'll see later in the show, we have a lot of moves that probably surprise people. And it may not be like a long-term dynasty play for like a long career, but it could be one of those things where it's like, I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. Let me kind of like throw this out there for this rookie, and then I can flip him for something later. But I do think that there's going to be some impact players, even if it's not viewed as a premier class. You even look at Ted McMillan. There's so much fatigue about him being the wide receiver one. People all of a sudden, after what he was been lauded as the wide receiver one since his freshman year, and people are like Golden ran this 40, all of a sudden he's wide receiver one now.
Yeah, it's just because
really?
Ted didn't participate at the combine.
Come on.
I rolled my eyes earlier. It's not you guys, but you were saying earlier, like the combine happens and then everyone changes their opinions. And it is the number one, like most entry level error that I see established people make every time in the industry, every year. Combine happens and all of a sudden, like everything changes. That should never happen. If you've done your homework, you know who these players are because the tape is more valuable. The combine is there to confirm or deny what you have seen on your tape. And like, I actually, not to be a huge contrarian, but I'm on the island of people that are not down with the running back chatter this year. I look at this class, and even Ashton Ginty, who is like the prize pick in this class, he's not a complete back. He's not a 3-down back that's going to go line up out wide and offer the same thing that Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs did, and Saquon Barkley, and these truly like all facet of the game premier talents. Ginty is probably one of the best running backs that I have ever seen come out of college. But with his stature and size, when I look at classes, I like to compare like the class to the class to the class. This running back class has a lot of like B+ talents in it. It's a lot of guys that over the course of 5 to 7 years, like they get replaced by other better talents. And it seems to me like, yes, there's going to be a lot of guys from this class that pop because it's the nature of the bodies. There's depth at that level, but it's more like Rashad White and Damian Pierce style prospects than it is premier guys. Like Quinshon Judkins, I think is fine, but he reminds me a lot of like he's Trent Richardson, Najee Harris, like that type of player. So anyway, man. I'm rambling. But
why do we gotta put Najee on strays? That hurts me.
Look, it is true. Like we see the combine change, like polarizing players. Like you have Anthony Richardson pre-combine versus Anthony Richardson post-combine are totally different evaluations, and sometimes we hit, sometimes we miss. I admit, your Sky Moore take, Ronnie. Josh calling me out saying, here we are with the hands of Treylon Burks pitch all over again. Obviously, I was high on Treylon Burks. He can't stay on the field, which is definitely hurting his valuation. But I'm cashing receipts on everyone. That's my
man, cancel the show. I can't risk this now.
It's all part of it. I'm not gonna post the next one because Ronnie, I was like dying. Like as you were like delivering your message, I looked at the next like few comments in the chat, and I'm like,
we all saw.
We just got spammed, guys. That's the first time that's ever happened during.
Does that mean that we've made it? Like, I don't know. That's
maybe
crazy.
I don't know. But for those of you that are not watching that are listening to the audio podcast, we will spare you the comments that we just got in the chat because, just go to the YouTube channel if you want to see. If not, let it ride into the sunset. You'll probably save yourself. You won't miss anything. But anyways, that's it. I'm with you, Ronnie, and I love the take. And this is where really in fantasy football, especially, you can win, right? Like the hot and cold, and Steph, I'm sure you've seen it, and you can agree. Like so many people ebb and flow with the narrative, right? Like constantly changing, and it creates risers and fallers as far as like people's evaluation of players. And for me, I look at that and I'm like, oh, such and such stock just went through the roof and they're really not that great. Let me go ahead and dish this player while I can. And, in Dynasty, you got to kind of watch that market, like the stock market, you got to watch it. And those players, boom, you're like, okay, let me get rid of them. Like take advantage of that.
This Nick Westbrook-Akine erasure is disgusting right now, by the way.
Hey, NWI is awesome, man. He's one of my favorite players. He reminds me a lot of. Do you guys remember Keelan Cole?
Yeah.
Popped for like 2 or 3 years. I was like, that's my dude right there. Like,
you know
no
what?
one
He's going to
values
get
this
paid
guy.
more than a lot of people think he's going to get paid in a couple of days.
Ikene is actually he's way better than Keelan Cole ever was.
But yeah,
Can I give you one other example, Tyler, that might be a controversial take?
Sure.
Marion Hampton, subpar vision, okay hands, but he is a good breakaway runner and he's got good contact balance. If you go and put him up against the top 3 running backs from the past 7 classes, he doesn't fit into the top 3 in most of them. Just overall prospect rate. I think people are just very caught up right now in the moment because all we have to do is like get hyped about rookies. This class is not like an elite running back class.
I do think, I don't know if I agree with that take, but I do think there's some element of if you think about the Bijan Robinson year, people are like, all right, well, he's the top of the list. Genty's the easy one. But then you have a lot of people who are like, who's the 2? And then you saw Gibbs kind of be a good player as the 2, and then it's worked out really well for both players. I like to attack the strengths of the draft in Dynasty. So it's like, when in doubt, I'm probably picking a running back in every round this year. And it's like, if I don't hit on everyone, I'm probably going to hit on someone. And if the GMs are coming out of the combine and saying, hey, it's a really deep running back class, I want as many lottery tickets from that as I can possibly get. So
I think that's smart.
Yeah. So even if Hampton isn't that guy, I feel pretty good about Hampton. I don't know enough about ball. There's a reason why I just talk about it with Tyler on Fridays to say that, hey, like he has good vision. He doesn't, but I feel comfortable with him as like an RB2. I'm
nitpicking. It's just Hampton's not like people talk about him like they talked about Jahmyr Gibbs when he was in the class with like, hey, it's not that level. Hampton is a B level, like probably top of the B tier, which is great. He's probably going to be relevant for fantasy for 5 years. But people are talking about him like he's a slam dunk top 10 running back moving forward after he goes to a good situation. He's not. That's not guaranteed.
He had a 9.93 rise. I mean, he ran at 4.47. You know, he's 6 feet, 221 pounds. You know, he was a workhorse. He could be a workhorse in the NFL in the right landing spot. I mean, ridiculous. You know, he had the production. He was an early declare. I mean, he does check off a lot of boxes of things we look at. It's like the athleticism was kind of just like the icing on the cake for me. Because, I mean, his production in college was good. And, yeah, we didn't have a clear-cut RB2 maybe behind Genty at first, and we could have debated guys. But I think he definitely helped his stock, and it seems like a lot of NFL teams are interested. If he gets, like, a premier landing spot, 'cause, I mean, they're, you know, if he ends up, you know, somehow, like, on the Raiders or somewhere,
Chargers.
Cowboys or Chargers, somewhere where he could just be the guy, and he's got the size and the speed. And, you know, I'm not like a super tape grinder to argue about, if his vision is perfect or not either. But I mean, from what I saw, he still had really good contact balance, and, you know, he was very, you know, he was scoring a lot of touchdowns, and he was a great running back still.
Yeah.
So I know that I agree that there's more depth than maybe the super high end elite talent, but I'm still very interested. And I mean, I was even more excited, I said, after the combine. But I do agree that sometimes people overrate, like they don't understand how to use the combine. It's like, I care more about like if it is improving their draft stock, like what the NFL thinks because of it, rather than just saying there's a direct correlation between, oh, this guy ran fast, so that means he's going to produce in the NFL. You know, that kind of correlation is a lot smaller than most people think in a lot of positions, the actual athleticism.
It isn't necessarily with the running back room, but I do find it fascinating on Keep Trade Cut that Tyler Warren, without playing a snap in the NFL, is viewed as tight end number 4 in fantasy in terms of,
Well, he's that Joker style tight end. He could. No, and I don't want anyone that's listening to think that I'm saying Omarion Hampton is a bad running back at all. I just like he could very well be a top 10 running back in fantasy for the first 4 years in the league. Like he's got that skill set, he's got the ability, now he's got the measurables. Everything is lining up for me though. He came out as like an 89 out of 100 in my grading scale. Whereas like Jahmyr Gibbs was a 94, and I think Bijan was a 97, and Ashton Genty is a 96. And so But I think because there isn't anything else to talk about, and because of this class doesn't have all of those movers that you typically see at skill positions for the first round. There's like 3, maybe 4 guys, and then one of them's playing defense. So Amari and Hampton, like 2 or 3 years ago, that was a really, really talented class across multiple positions. He's probably a second-round pick, maybe even a third. This year, he probably is a first-round pick. And so I don't know. I'm just rambling. My only point is that this class is good. It's not this elite mountain that everyone keeps talking about it as, and we see this every year.
I believe good is a decent term for it. Like quarterbacks, I think are just good. Wide receivers, there's a couple, but it's still it's not like I don't think we have the wide receiver class we had last season. You know what I mean? Like the running backs, I think that
last season was crazy.
I mean, it was crazy. We got several for year 1,000-yard receivers, double-digit touchdowns. And even in bad offenses, like freaking Brian Thomas Jr. did with Mac Jones throwing the football the last half of the season. Like it just, it was a good class.
Now Brian Thomas Jr., after doing all that, he's Will Smith just looking at his carpet, just wondering where everybody else on his team went.
That's true, and that kind of gets us
looking at all the targets he's about to get. I'm going to get paid so much money.
They said that they want to get him involved. Cohen already said he's like, man, this is the guy that we want to feed. This guy, we want to get him tons of targets. And so, like, if you're a Brian Thomas Jr. owner, you're probably like, let's go.
Yeah, Cohen said we're going to feature him, and then he was like, and I'm going to go we don't have a choice anymore, guys. So here you go.
Yeah, I mean, you don't typically see that kind of rookie production. Go ahead, Steph.
Oh, no, I was like, yeah, I agree. Just like eliminate literally all the competition. And there you go. It's like Parker Washington is now, the next guy up, him and Gabe Davis. And that's.
And we'll see. I'm sure that's going to change like as we get into the draft. I think that they're probably gonna try to get somebody. I'm curious. I think that they need more O-line help. Like they've got to protect Trevor Lawrence, and they said that they're committed to that. So I could see them spending that early first round on a nice, beautiful O-line.
And they should.
Chev comment in says Britton Strange season. I don't hate that take.
I mean, it's the legendary ball knower. How can you disagree with it?
But so this is the part in the show, and as we kind of get into the next segment, we're going to start off with a question over at the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. As you know, this show is brought to you by the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. It is your Q&A show, and we always are here to try to help answer your questions, help you win in your dynasty leagues, help you win in your redraft leagues. And so we're going to go over to the Fantasy Sports Advice Network, which is the social media platform for fantasy sports, and answer a couple questions there from some of our users. So we're going to do that now.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.
So, Joe, one thing before we get this question, every time that I hear the Trolls of Reddit part of that commercial, it makes me think of you.
As you should, because people of Reddit are very nice. I got my fantasy football start by posting stuff in Reddit.
Right on, Joe. I remember when the fantasy football subreddit started like 13 years ago.
Yeah, I broke up with a girl right after I moved to Dallas, and I had to delete my account and get a new Reddit account so that she couldn't find my stuff.
Joe, have you
Let's
hit
not
number one
enter ex-girlfriend talk. I'm ending that conversation there. We're gonna go and answer the geezer's question before we get on Joe's ex-girlfriends. You're married now with a baby. It's time to leave that in the past. So the geezer asks, does the presence of Debo positively or adversely affect McLaurin's numbers for the 2025 season? You're shaking your head there, Ronnie. What's your thoughts?
Neutral. They're completely different roles in the offense. There will be a little bit of overlap in some of the yak style plays that Terry ran last year, but I think this actually probably just benefits or stays neutral for him. It's going to help open up the offense, create another threat for the defense to have to worry about. McLaurin is no longer the only guy for them to pay attention to. I know Dotson has been up and down, but like they're different players. It's like asking if a running back is going to affect a wide receiver. Yeah, a little bit, but not enough for it to really. I don't think it's going to change much.
You have a thought, Steph?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I think it's fine for McLaurin. I think he fits really well into the offense. I think, just Cliff is going to be able to screens and, things at that short yardage, and he's going to be, really perfect for it. We couldn't have had a better landing spot for Debo. Now, whether we think Debo is washed or not, it's another question. But, I mean, McLaurin's also, he's not like an ultra target hog either. Like, he's going to get there still, taking the top off defense as their deep threat. And, they're going to do their thing. And I think they're going to work really well together. And I'm still wouldn't change my priors on McLaurin because of Debo being there. If anything, the offense should be getting a boost and be better overall.
Yeah, I think there's two components to it. So Terry McLaurin is currently being drafted for best ball on like Underdog is wide receiver 14, which isn't terrible considering how he finished last year. So I think if he dips from that because of the Debo Samuel news, I probably would subscribe to that. I think that you have a couple interesting points. One, Terry McLaurin's touchdown efficiency last year was pretty insane. He's likely to regress from that. I think the other thing we have to keep in mind is that Washington had a fairly easy schedule because they were the bottom of the barrel of the NFC East. So that was a positive game script for them. If you look at their game script numbers, Washington ran the ball a lot because they were ahead of lot. I expect them to have closer games this year. I agree with Steph a lot about Cliff Kingsbury's want and desire, I guess, from the offense to have low risk screen type throws that really involve Debo Samuel really well. But that's not going to take away from Terry whatsoever. So I do think that it's a positive move for him. I don't think it's a direct comparison, but I think a lot about Stephon Diggs going to Houston last year. A lot of people got really worked up about what does that mean for Nico Collins, and then Nico Collins outside of the hamstring injury, top 5 wide receiver in the league. Now,
number 1 for like the first 8 weeks.
Right. And I think we do have to consider that Terry McLaurin is a little bit older than Nico Collins is, but you have a budding prospect in Jaden Daniels. You can see that they're really taking the step to be all in while he's on that rookie contract. And I think that I feel really good about Terry, especially at wide receiver 14. If you're drafting him as your wide receiver 2, I would probably feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
Can I add one other thing, Tyler?
Yeah.
You just brought up something that made me change my tune just a little bit. I think it's a neutral move for McLaurin, but if you're drafting McLaurin this year and you're drafting him based on what he did last year, just know that that's probably the ceiling. Like everything lined up for McLaurin and Jaden Daniels last year. We got another year of tape. Despite what we all like to say, quarterbacks typically actually don't go nuclear their second year after they have a good rookie season. We saw a major swing with that with CJ Stroud last year. But I think like what we saw from Jaden Daniels in that offense last year, there's not a lot of room to grow from it right now. And so if I had to bet on anything happening to any of the players on the Washington offense next year, I would have probably bet actually on a little bit of regression. Not because they're even worse as a team, but just like it was nuclear. You won league last year because of that offense.
I'm still in. I'm still in.
I'm just saying.
I'm still in. I'll take the heat. I'll ride the wave. I don't care. I'm in on McLaurin, and if Noah Brown can be relevant alongside McLaurin, sure, Debo can too. I don't think that either one of them hurts McLaurin's numbers. Like you said, they're very different receivers. But call it college ball, call it, watching Jaden Daniels come in at halftime and Arkansas leading by 3 touchdowns and him take them and beat them in the game. Like Jaden Daniels is a baller. Like he is a baller. He's a winner. He will go get it. So I'm not worried about it. I don't even like coming into the draft. Like people were okay about Stroud last season, but you look at Stroud's season, which was a surprise to us all, and it's still not I don't think it touches what Jaden Daniels did last year.
Oh, no, because the difference with Stroud, it was like, hey, you're young, you're on a team that's not that great, and you did well as far as like leading them.
Well, Jaden went to the Commanders.
No, I get that, but it's like if you look at like strictly fantasy, Stroud had big games, but he didn't even throw 30 touchdown passes. So it was like you were banking on him taking that next step as a passer, especially for a guy that isn't necessarily a runner. Jaden, he offered that floor off the bat, looking at like his college numbers. He had, I think, 120 carries his final year. So it was like, all right, even if he doesn't throw as much, then at least you're going to have that floor from the run game. He put it all together. I know it, which is funny because they're like, oh, like he does this stuff with VR and all of these things. What's up, Rachel? We have done all of this stuff where it's like my little brother has like the NFL VR thing. I almost flipped over my couch, like just like playing fun, like trying to avoid a sack. So it's like, it's really interesting to like have all that stuff come together. But I think his rushing ability and his willingness to run, even if he regresses a little bit, you're seeing that a lot more in the fantasy relevant quarterbacks that you have today. CJ Stroud, not a runner. He needs to throw 40 touchdowns a year to be a fantasy relevant player, even if he's a good real life NFL quarterback.
Fair enough. So speaking of that, obviously we've had the churning of players, and I saw this hit. There was a tweet that came out about a potential Packers trade for DK Metcalf. So we're going to go back over to this Fantasy Sports Advice Network. Coach Retzlaff said, if you're the Packers, do you prefer? And I'm curious, Steph, I know you're in it. You're in deep. I want your take on this first. Do you prefer getting DK Metcalf and giving up the first round pick, 23rd overall, and a Wicks or Romeo Doubs, or would you rather not have DK, keep Wicks and Dobbs, and then be able to add any of the, Golden, Amika, Trey Harris, or like Luther Burden, like any of these guys with that pick? Which way do you lean?
Well, first of all, I know that he wants to get a first, but I don't think anybody's going to actually pay a first. I don't think that's happening. So I think it's going to be maybe a second, maybe a third and Dobbs, and that's fine. I mean, they need somebody to replace Watson there on the outside. And I mean, I do think that DK, he fell off a little bit, but I mean, he's still that X receiver, he's still got it. And I think he would work really well with Jaden Reed and give them a lot to work with on the offense. So I think it would be a very smart move to make for the Packers. And, like we've been talking about, this wide receiver class doesn't have that much super high-end talent. We know what DK is. We don't know what these other guys are. And he's still only 27. Like, he's still in his prime. It's not like, like Devonta Adams might be a good player still, but you're probably not going to get much more than maybe, this. He's starting to be on his decline, where DK still has, some time left. So I do think that if I was the Packers, I would look into the trade, as long as I said first is too rich, but definitely maybe like a third and a player makes sense.
It is interesting because it reminds me a lot of the Brandon Ayuk discourse from last year, which I still am hurting as a Steelers fan because we didn't find another wide receiver other than like the one moon ball that Mike Williams had that one game. We were like, wow, like he still has it. And then he just never saw the field again. So I think that the first and the third, it's a fair value for DK. But the problem is, from like the GM perspective, I also have to give him a $30 million a year contract. So it's like if you had to do one of those two things, it probably wouldn't be that bad. But having to do both of those in a vacuum, where the wide receiver talent coming out of drafts has been so good, it's probably not worth what you're giving up to make it happen.
Yep.
So I think that if that's the price, if they're firm on that first and a third, and then you have to pay DK, I think DK stays. Now, that being said, the news that broke today with Geno Smith now being traded to the Raiders, I don't know what the heck's going to happen.
Did you hear that they tried to trade Geno and DK to them for Max Crosby?
Wow.
And got laughed at.
I didn't hear that, no.
Like, laughed out of the building. Yeah, like,
yeah.
No,
Max Crosby's worth
like,
multiple firsts. So here's the thing. Dude, Joe, DK is not worth a first-round pick. He's not worth a first-round plus. He's not worth the second plus. his contract plus his age
Right.
and the current landscape of wide receivers, you're getting a third for that guy. And if you want more than that, you better hope you're getting a miracle. So if like the Packers, they probably did this over the last week. They probably looked at Seattle and were like, you want a third and Dontavian Wicks? Bye. See you later. We're good. We'll go draft Jaden Higgins and we'll have him handle the outside stuff while Christian Watson's hurt. Like, you can't go pay a guy like DK Metcalf. I love, like Tyler knows, I'm a big Seahawks fan. I've got an autographed DK Metcalf jersey hanging up in my bedroom. But he's really one-dimensional. He's a big body, kind of soft possession receiver that can stretch a defense and can make some vertical catches. Still doesn't run good routes. Still doesn't get good separation. Still struggles with hand fighting. He's an overall, like, he's probably wide receiver 30 in the NFL in terms of overall talent and impact. So the Packers got to pay Jordan Love. They got all this other stuff. There's no way. No, I don't even think they're a good fit for DK because of all of that.
I think
he should
they're
go to
a
the
good
Patriots
fit for DK because Josh Jacobs completely just like crapped on the entire wide receiver room. It was like, yeah, like we don't have any good.
I would rather see them go trade for T. Higgins if they're going to go do something with a guy.
That would be fire.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can all say that, but I mean, most likely, unfortunately, is he's going to end up back in Cincinnati, probably.
Yeah.
Seems
They already did the franchise tag, obviously.
Twice. Travesty. Just like
T. Higgins' mother tweeted out talking about how disrespectful it was for him to be franchise tagged twice and not get a contract. It is kind of discerning. I mean, granted, he's going to get paid good money, but you know when you get a contract, like you're getting $40 million up front. You know, you're getting you get a signing bonus, you get all this stuff in it, and you get a top salary, sure, with a franchise tag, but it's just not the same, you know. And plus, you don't get to come to work and be like, this is where I'm going to be for the next 4 years. You're living in that state of, dissonance again of like, and you wonder, like for him, you wonder, does the team really value me? Like, do they really want me here? That they won't give me a contract. They won't like invest in me beyond a singular year.
As the great Latrell Sprewell said in 2004, I have a family to feed.
I think he's feeding his family.
Seems
making
like
$50 million in 2 years.
That they did this to like extend the timeline they have for a contract talk. They didn't say that the extension's not happening. So hopefully they do right by him and that's what they're doing here and not just locking him in.
What'll be interesting, especially now that Trey Hendrickson is kind of off the table as well. Mentioned, it's like maybe they just decide, you know what? We're not going to play defense at all. Like we just are going to take our best defensive player who could have been defensive player of the year. And you know what? Screw it. We're just going to score 40 points a game and it'll be fine.
That sounds good for me for fantasy.
Yeah, for sure.
It's great for fantasy. The funny part is like their defense should not be as bad as it was. It just got banged up. They lost Dax Hill. They lost so many players in the secondary. Like their defense is better than how they played towards the end of the season.
They got cooked by Russell Wilson. Don't even try me with this.
Bro, lots of people got cooked by Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson got a Super Bowl, bro. Like it's like the guy could still cook a little bit. I mean, he did it, Now, granted, he was really assisted by a receiver that has incredible tracking ability on those moon balls, but I don't think that that's the case. Like, I don't think it's like, oh, they got cooked by Russell. Like they were beat up. The defense is not that bad. Now, without Trey Hendrickson, without a solid pass rush, we may be talking about something different, but they've got a premier linebacker. They've got decent defensive backs. They need some D line, but it's not ugly. It's not the worst of the worst.
And it's a good draft for the defensive line as well. At least in the middle. DT is pretty deep. I would say
it's a good draft. It's a good, if you want pure pass rushers or you want interior defensive line, it's a monster class, man.
Yeah.
There's like 5 guys on the inside this year that might have gone first overall in the last couple classes. In that position group. It's nuts.
So kind of moving on from the T. Higgins talk and the DK, obviously we'll see how that pans out. You mentioned Geno. Geno to the Raiders is absolutely crazy to me, especially 3rd round pick. I like when that hit my phone, I saw the alert. I was like, what?
It's crazy to me because so they're projecting, or like the line in the sand was that Seattle wanted to pay him 35 a year. Geno's camp wanted 45 a year. And I was like, there is no way that I would pay $45 million for Geno Smith. And then I started looking at the players that are getting $45 million a year. And I was like, no, you know what? Yeah, okay. Like, where do I sign?
And you look out the window and you look at the free agent market and this draft class, and you're like, all right, here you go, Geno.
Here's the thing, though. Like, I don't know, and follow me here. I don't know that Sam Howell cannot put up the same production that Geno Smith put up for significantly less. Obviously, we saw, like, before they traded him in Washington, it wasn't beautiful, but it wasn't ugly.
It wasn't awful.
Tyler, what's funny about
it was pretty ugly. That sack rate, I mean, you cannot
the sack rate, but is that on him or the fact that he had like half a second?
Terrible coaching staff, no offensive line.
I mean, that is also followed him though from college. Like that is like been part of his profile.
And the good news is that Seattle doesn't have an offensive line. And Tyler, for as much as that you hate Reddit fantasy football loves Sam Howell, so I think that you have a home there.
Well, that's because for fantasy, if you only judged him by his fantasy football output, you'd be like, why is this guy not starting?
I mean, we've won it.
3 40-point games. It's crazy.
But here's the thing. Like, if I'm the Seahawks, I'm not putting $45 million a year into Geno. I'm not personally.
I would.
Well, that's why we would not run the same franchise, Joe, and that's okay.
See me in Madden, bro.
and like, if you justify it, if you're like, oh, let me look at the quarterbacks getting $45 million. Oh, Daniel Jones is on that list. Daniel Jones also doesn't have a team anymore. It's like, just because that other people get paid, that doesn't mean that that's somebody's. Like, if I'm a GM and it's Geno, right, and I have to decide if I want to put $45 million a year. Like, Matt Stafford was asking for $50 million. Like, if I put $45 million in Geno, I'm not in personally. Like, but that's okay. Like, we can agree to disagree. Nobody's hurt feelings are hurt. I'm just not putting $45 million. I would rather take the 3rd round pick. You got Sam Howell that can pretty much do the same thing, or you draft somebody.
Tyler, can I back you up real quick?
Sure.
As a Seattle fan, lay of the land here. So this team is very, very reminiscent to the 2010 squad that they had. They kind of had a quarterback, but they didn't. If you all remember Tavares Jackson. They kind of had like a well put together team, but they didn't. They were like C+ at a lot of positions, but they had a couple A+. And they basically punted for a year and said, we're going to invest in the draft for 2 seasons, solve our quarterback and free agency in the draft, nurture this team, and build out the roster before inserting the quarterback. I have a feeling what they're doing right now, after getting rid of Tyler Lockett, opening DK up for trades, getting rid of Geno, is they're doing the same thing. They know that they've got 7 or 8 premier blue chip players on their roster right now. And they know that this draft class does not offer a day one starter that's going to change a franchise. It just doesn't. Every single one of these guys in this class, I'm like, these guys could be great. Like, and they might be good day one, but really what you should do is put them on the bench for a year, which is now okay. We've gotten back to accepting that as NFL fans and as critics. So if Seattle's smart, they're moving all these pieces. They roll with Sam Howell, and they draft someone like Jackson Dart. They put him on the bench, and they basically rack up talent around that rookie to build similar to what has been successful, and like the only successful path for rookie quarterbacks over the last 7 years is that process. And I think that's what they're doing.
And you think that would be either a 2nd round or like trade back up into the 1st to make that happen? Or do you think
probably trade up into the end of the 1st or take him? But I think they're going to go offensive line with their 1st round pick. I talked to Scott Engel yesterday actually about this, and he was like, we're going 1st. Offensive line in the 1st, no matter what happens. But like, they could also go and sign Sam Darnold for a 1 year or maybe a 2-year contract and do the same thing and go draft a guy and say Sam Howell's gone. We don't care. We've seen this for 2 years, but we're going to go put a guy like Cam Ward or Jackson Dart, or like some of these other guys like Quinn Ewers. I don't think he's very good, but if you're Seattle, you're saying 2027 is probably the year where we could go change our franchise with a quarterback. So let's just nurture for a couple years.
Yeah,
we're not
Quinn
winning
Ewers' proof that the college football 25 curse is real.
He's so bad. I mean,
yeah,
he's so bad. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like their receivers are good. I mean, they have like good players, and he is just. I don't know how they keep producing with him. Like honestly, it's amazing.
Anyway. Yeah, I agree with you, Steph. Quinn, just a side note on Quinn Ewers, like, oh my gosh, Ohio State had the only receiver room that was better in all of college football.
And Howard looked horrible.
Yeah.
Like
if Vaughn could actually run a 4.1, he probably would have caught those passes. But
there you go.
Anyway, I hope that's
before, but that's what
Seattle is doing. I hope they're just basically saying we're going to play the draft for the next 2 years and nurture this team out, rather than like we're going to go solve everything with Sam Darnold.
I really hope that at some point in my lifetime that the NFC like figures out how to draft quarterbacks or like do something related to quarterbacks, because like as a fan of an AFC team, it's just been such a domination of Mahomes, Brady, Manning, and then like you sprinkle in like, oh, somehow like Roethlisberger managed to get it done a couple years, where it's like if you look at the NFC, it's like every year a different quarterback makes it to the Super Bowl. And it's like, so I like that path for Seattle. There's not really a lot of elite quarterback competition in the NFC. So you build up your roster around it. It's kind of been the the San Francisco 49ers model. You have everything there, a good enough quarterback, and then make a run and see what happens. So yeah, I fully support that.
I think that's what they're doing.
Why not? Like, I mean, depending on if you can get Darnold for cheap. I mean, he still is young. Why not see what you got in him though?
Sure.
I mean, why not take that option? Because he might end up being better than a lot of these quarterbacks in the class. Like, at least we've seen that he can function as an NFL quarterback last year. Now, how much was, that they had a really good coach in O'Connell and stuff, and can he do that outside of that system anywhere else? But if they are maybe, like you say, getting O-line, which would help as well, obviously, and still building up around him, and then not maybe losing that draft capital, whatever they can afford, to pay, they might be able to get something for cheap. Because I mean, to me, it just seems Sam Howell is and I do agree that they're probably kind of in a rebuild type, mindset and not like necessarily going all in to win for sure. But Howell really seems like you're just throwing in, and I don't know. It's like, why do you necessarily want to take one of these guys that's maybe not as good in the draft? Do you really want to play that game? And then, because then if they don't work out, what's going to happen? You're just going to have to be also wasting those picks every year, taking another quarterback too.
Yeah. I think if Seattle, given that they have a premier draft slot at the 106, it would be foolish for them to reach for a quarterback when that quarterback, there's so many holes in the team that they need help there.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that Geno is like a 10 to 15 range in terms of quarterbacks in the league. It's like he's good, not great, but it's like one of those things where like you can build around that team and make noise in the NFC. There's a lot of changing of the guard. You have a lot of teams, like even just like you look at their own division, like Arizona, who knows what's going to happen with Kyler. He's talk of trade. I forget where it was. They were talking about, Cleveland. They're saying that he might end up in Cleveland of all places, like weirdly enough. So it's like the NFC West, which was considered one of the best divisions in the NFC, is kind of gone. NFC North, there's a lot of noise that's happening there. But outside of that, there's no real sure up contenders. So it's like, how can you best build that team around it? And I think that Seattle has been pretty proactive about doing that. So it'll be fun to watch to see what they do. But yeah, they got some dogs in Seattle, man. I love a lot of the people that they have there.
So let me give a little bit of perspective, because I heard Geno was worth it. I've heard Sam Darnold. It took Geno 10 seasons before he put up numbers to surpass Howell's sophomore season. In his sophomore season, where the only season he actually played 17 games, Howell threw for almost 4,000 yards and 21 touchdowns. He was QB 12 in fantasy. It took Geno 10 years to get even to surpass a 4,000-yard passing mark. You look at Darnold, it took him 7 years to pass a 4,000-yard passing mark. So to say that Sam Howell's out when he's already done it, he did it in his sophomore season, and then he got dished off because they took Jaden Daniels 1 overall, which is fine. Like, to say that he can't do it or that he won't put up those numbers, I think is crazy because he's already done it. He did it earlier than either of the other two guys in the conversation.
Yeah.
It just takes a little bit of development and a little bit of like a team investing in you, right? And so there's a high even like you look at Geno. So you look, the year that Sam Howell's sophomore year, he finished QB 12. Geno finished QB like 17 in the same season in PPR. So it's like I don't think it's an outlandish take.
No, I think the thing is
he could actually steer that offense.
Wait, before you jump in, Joe, I'm going to bridge the gap between both you guys and confirm what Stephanie said. Sam Darnold coming in Seattle, Sam Howell, using him for a year just to see what they have, and he is an above average shit quarterback. Crap quarterback, excuse me, I'm sorry. And
cancel him.
Canceled.
I'm sorry. He's a ship quarterback. Like, he works at the docks. But what Seattle is doing right now is they're basically acknowledging that in this draft class, there is no immediate answer, and there's probably not any answer besides projects. Next year, we're probably not getting all the guys we want. Arch and Nico, they're probably not both declaring next year. But they know
Arch.
that by 2027,
We need
2027. Yeah, I know. 2027 though is probably like where you can go get a quarterback that'll change your franchise.
See,
we don't know that the next 2 years, so you can bridge it with Darnold or Howell.
Here's the thing though, like people are saying, can Darnold be a franchise guy now instead of a bridge quarterback? And like, look what we got for the first 6 years of his career, or even Geno. Like, Geno can be the franchise guy.
I feel like playing for the Jets like negates like a lot of that.
Well, dude, what was playing for the Commanders the last 3 seasons? Like, it was
okay,
so
but you know what? They got a new owner, and then what immediately happened? It became good.
Right, but he played under the bad owner.
Sure. But
to me, it's worse than the Jets.
But I do Carson Palmer as your bar. Sam Darnold can be a franchise quarterback.
Anyways,
I think it's interesting with the Sam Howell piece that if you look going into his last year at University of North Carolina, there was a lot of speculation about him being the number 1 quarterback in that draft class. And he didn't live up to the hype at UNC. Part of it maybe was the injuries that he suffered throughout the year. Maybe, but like there was
a little too much.
Andy Dalton, I would take any day of the week. I mean, I've been watching.
He's Andy Dalton, franchise quarterback, the bare minimum.
All right. Anyways, so we're coming up on the end of the show, and I wanted to give everybody a chance. So, in free agency, okay, let's say you can paint the picture. Your dream come true move happens, whether it be your team or another team. What is a free agency move that is possible that can make waves in the NFL that you would be excited about?
There's no good free agents this year.
The best news that I can have as a Steelers fan is that we don't bring back Russell Wilson.
Oh my God, you're such a hater.
I'm not a hater. The dude is washed. It's just like I don't need that.
Joe, I went to high school with him.
I didn't know that. No.
He
watch your mouth. That's my
took
boy.
the Steelers to the playoffs.
Is that we're talking about TJ Watt right now, or
okay? Oh man,
can it be a trade?
It's okay.
I mean,
can it be trade?
There's no
Can
rules.
it be a trade? I'll take a trade.
Because let's use DK Metcalf as an example. He's a free agent. All right, man, he's not technically, but he's a free agent. I want DK Metcalf. The ideal scenario for me, which is crackpot, and I tweeted about this earlier today, but I want to see the fantasy football industry just combust on itself after he gets traded to the Commanders. I think it would be amazing. People would lose their mind. And I think Jaden Daniels, like, people would sell their cars to go get him in dynasty leagues. But realistically speaking, though, Drake May, I think, is poised for a breakout. But that team needs an outside presence, and they need a reliable deep threat that can they also need help in the red zone. There is only one guy that, free agent or not, that is available right now in the NFL that offers that, and it is DK Metcalf. And if you go put him on that offense, they draft a good wide receiver, and maybe they go get Evan Ingram. All of a sudden, I think Drake May is a top 10 dynasty quarterback.
Why do they
heading into the
need
season.
Ingram?
They don't need Ingram.
Hunter Henry's
they
been
do.
okay.
Yes,
We don't need
Tell
no,
him,
because then they're
Steph.
just going to
You
start
tell him,
splitting
Steph.
the tight ends. They don't need more tight ends. They just want to collect tight ends. They really
But
don't.
that's
I mean,
the Patriots'
I
way.
would rather for because then you're going to kill Hunter Henry and Evan Ingram's fantasy value. And I'm playing for fantasy, not real life, unfortunately. In real life, it's probably a much better move. I would love to see DK Metcalf there. I think along the same notes, he would also be great, maybe like on the Chargers or something, compliment like Ladd. I'd also go ahead and say Devonta Adams in that mix as well would be a really fun one, really fun landing spot. He wants to go somewhere maybe on the West Coast, he said. For my Cowboys, I would love them to do anything that is not Jonathan Mingo. Like just do something smart. Anything that is smart. I don't know. I get very nervous saying, because, they said they want to be selectively active during free agency or selectively aggressive or something was the quote, I believe. So they need a number 2 wide receiver. They need a running back. They need some O-line. I don't know what they're going to do, but I am terrified that we're going to end up with washed DeAndre Hopkins or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think the one that's most interesting,
or maybe Amari Cooper coming back, I've heard, and I think he didn't look great either, but I would be I think maybe Diggs could be fun on the Cowboys. Get the brothers together.
Ooh.
If he's not, because it seems like they're saying he's got interest. So hopefully the injury he can come back from. He might have a little something left. And that one I could actually see as being more realistic. I think whatever team Lance Godwin is going to be getting somebody amazing as long as he's pretty healthy. He'd be another fun one on the Patriots as well. I mean, heck, the Patriots need people. Take them both. Then they can have a slot and an outside and
Steph,
they have
I got mixed up earlier.
$20 million in cap space. They are not going to be able to even use all that money. Spend the money. They can't spend it all if they try. Drake May is a baller. I was until Jaden Daniels had a great season. I was a May truther, and I was
he looked great.
I loved him, and he looked great running for his freaking life. He did so much with so little in the worst coaching situation. Everything was against him, and he showed that he can overcome. Get that man an O-line, get that man some weapons, and I think the Patriots could really take a step forward. I mean, Vrabel's going to be so much better for them. I mean, everything.
Bring it.
Wait. Before Joe goes, I have to correct myself. I got really excited earlier because I was thinking about the Washington Redskins thing, or excuse me, Commanders thing. It's Evan Ingram potentially to not the Redskins or not the Commanders, not the Patriots.
Broncos?
That's twice in a row. Sorry. The Broncos. You nailed it. And what I was talking with a buddy about last night was DK Metcalf actually going to the Patriots. That's ideal spot number 1. Evan Ingram going to the Broncos to serve as the Joker over there. And then Chris Godwin also going to the Patriots, which is what you said that just a second ago, Steph, reminded me of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think Juwan Johnson might end up going to the Broncos because of the history with Peyton. Possibly.
Oh, yeah. That seems very
logical,
and it probably wouldn't be that expensive either.
Yeah. Because that's the one.
Greg Dulcich is not bad.
I mean,
you got that
look, I really wanted to make Dulcich happen, but it hasn't happened. Maybe we're not as smart as we think, and they know something we don't.
Andrew Cooper just fell into his knees and has no idea why because you just brought him up.
It's been multiple coaching staffs now that haven't seen it with him. At first it was maybe one person doesn't know what they're talking about, but he can't even get on the field.
Who were we talking about?
Greg Dulcich.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Joe. What's your move?
My guy is Najee Harris. I could see him going to a team like the Chargers. I think that he's one of those guys that he's played for a pretty mediocre team with a bad line and a bad quarterback, so he doesn't get a good rap. But if you look at the running back class, if you subscribe to the Ronnie Evans, hey, this running back class isn't actually as good as we think, Najee could come in. He's only 26 years old. He's about to have his birthday, but he could come in and really improve from what we've expected of him as a first-round pick. I don't think he's going to be expensive as we think. From the sources that I have from the Steelers, he's not returning to the Steelers. So he's going to be looking elsewhere. You could see him going to the Raiders. You could see him going to the Chargers. We'll see where he lands. But I think that he's going to be one of those guys that he's played pretty much every game that he's had the opportunity to. He is not fitting the style of offense that Artie Smith wants to run in Pittsburgh. And I think that if he goes to the right situation, he's going to be a later round pick because he hasn't lived up to the hype pretty much every year that he's been in the league. So you could probably get him at a value in fantasy drafts next year, depending on where he is.
Where do you think you can get him?
I have
right
another
now?
spot. I have another spot for Najee that I think could be fun. What about going to the Bears? He could be like their David Montgomery.
Ooh,
That
good.
can work with Swift.
They need
You
a
know,
running
like
back.
Swift is the pass catcher. They are now shoring up
This
their
is
O-line. They've, been investing these resources, getting ready for a running back. It's like, yeah, they could maybe take somebody with that first pick, like super high. They might go after Genti now. I think that's also more realistic. But I mean, Najee, like you say, he's shown he could be a workhorse. He's hardly ever missed games. He's just slow and steady, basically. And he does all the things good enough. Like, he's not great. He's not fantastic, but coaches like him,
Yeah.
He knows how to get it done. And that, it's just that same similarity. And we saw what they did, what Ben Johnson did with them in Detroit. It just seems like it would just fit the system and what they like to do.
The Bears would be crazy
And
fun.
It could be really fun.
Joe,
it could be a really fun one as well.
Joe, I take offense to the fact that you took my subduing of this running back class and used Najee Harris as the NFL.
Do I have his jersey in my closet? Maybe.
Like, if you're gonna say that, like, I would say no. Go draft Caleb Johnson in the fourth. Don't go pay.
I mean, I would also do that, but I just know the NFL doesn't work that way.
Here, Tyler. Here's my final take, and then I'm gonna not talk for the rest of the episode.
I'm gonna let you take my turn. Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, I'm Tyler, and this is my take.
Oh my God.
The Denver Broncos trade for DK Metcalf. They pick up Evan Ingram, and they draft Ashton Genti. And then you cannot rank Bo Nix outside of your top 10 dynasty quarterbacks.
I will trade Bo Nix if that happens because there is no way that that's sustainable. But
Bo is incredible. Another show, another day. I'll debate him to death. He's real good.
So
you just like him because he wears orange.
Do they trade him? Is that how they get DK Metcalf? Do they give them?
Yeah, trade for DK, sign Evan Ingram.
Well, no. Like I said, Sutton, because it feels like DK and Sutton are pretty, kind of have a little bit of a crossover. DK's probably better, but
Sutton's a chain mover and a conversion specialist. DK is a field stretcher and kind of a red zone threat. So I get where you're going. It's actually what I had talked to my buddy about, the same thing. It was Jeff DiMatteo, shout out to him, but he's former scout, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, no, that would be perfect because Cortland Sutton and DK would offer big targets for Bo Nix, which he excels with, but they actually play completely different roles. Which was
so you're trying to kill my Marvin Mims, is what I hear. You're trying to.
No, I like Marvin Mims.
No.
It would hurt Marvin.
This trade doesn't happen. It's not my trade. I don't like it. It's not my. I don't like the take, Ronnie.
All right, Tyler. You know what the best part about it being your show is that even though you gave it to Ronnie, you can still bring it home.
No,
it's okay.
Anyway, thanks for listening,
Ronnie,
guys.
Ronnie
It's been me, Tyler. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, Ronnie used it up. We are now 10 minutes past time, so we got to roll on home. But I tell you what, next week I will open the show with the free agent move, if it has not happened yet, that I want to see happen. And it's a good one. I think it stacks up. And I'll tell you this, Joe, I've got a lot of Pickens shares in my dynasty leagues. Hint, hint. So anyways,
you might not be on the Steelers next year. I'm just saying, by the way, but good luck.
I'm okay with that. Anyway, so thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, wonderful guests. If you would, real quick, just let the audience know where they can find you, where they can find your work if they want to connect with some more of your takes and your content. We'll start with Ronnie and go counterclockwise. Go ahead, Ronnie.
if you're watching, it's right there at the bottom left corner of the screen, at Ronnie A. Evans on X. I'm also on Blue Sky, but I haven't used it yet.
All right, Steph.
I did not, unfortunately, put my Twitter handle in my name, so it's not on my screen, but you can follow me on X, not Twitter, at Steph Miller 57. You can also check out some of my work over at legendaryupside.com. And I am on Blue Sky as well, and I do not know my handle offhand, but it is somewhere in Steph Miller. So you can probably just like search the fantasy football stuff and find it, you know.
Do we not use consistent handles across platforms, people? Like, what are we doing?
Well, Steph Miller apparently is a very common name, so they make me use different numbers with it a lot of times. There's many of us.
57, 34, Steph Miller 12. I'm just kidding. All right, Joe.
Yeah, you can find me at JOEFRK. I'm also on the Fantasy Football Advice Network, so you can find me anywhere that there is probably some semblance of Joe Frick in the world, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, it's all the same. JOEFRK. We just keep it consistent. So there's a lot of Joe Fricks in the world, but one to talk ball with Tyler every week. There's only one.
And as you guys know, you can follow me on Twitter. You can connect with us over at the Fantasy Sports Advice Network, fantasysportsadvice.com. Come over and hang out with us on the social media platform. You can drop your questions there if you have them. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week on From the Forum. Peace.
Draft Dylan Sampson.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.